when did you, how recently did you finish this book?
This morning.
This morning? Wow, okay. You really pushed to the day.
I had like 40 pages left.
I mean, with your hair, you look like someone who had just finished Ratner Star. If I still had hair, it probably would have looked like yours.
But no, I just finished this morning, and it was a trial, and I scored it really high, but I'm really glad it's over, and I'm probably never going to read it again.
Yeah, that's where, okay. So, and we'll probably get to this later on in the video, but, with the whole it being impenetrable, I wouldn't say it's impenetrable. Anyway, we'll get to that later.
It is exhausting.
I'm actually surprised you scored it as high as you did. I gave you my bullshit score first thing in the morning just because, and it's sad that you believed it. 106, what was it? Oh, shit. How are you?
That's what you get for giving me a bullshit score. Anyway.
I say let's dive right into this, but...
We were talking about your bullshit score.
Okay, so my bullshit score of 106 point...
I did think it was a little high, but I also know you.
There's no way that this book got a perfect score and then, or maybe almost a perfect score and then got 10 points of.
Well, I figured you would start it at a 96. I figured it was in the mid 90s, and I figured that you had given it 10 points extra credit because I know you have this raging boner for anything Delillo.
This is actually, I would. As opposed to okay, so early Delillo, I will never reread. I read Americana, I read Endzone, I read Great Jones Street, I read this. I will never reread these. Even the shorter novels like Endzone. Sorry, Craig. I know it's your favorite. It's shit. It's a football novel. I mean, yeah, I get the comparisons to football and nuclear warfare having similar terminology and the whatever. I don't care. I hate football, and I'm an American. I hate football, American football, because soccer's also football. But it was boring. It was a boring novel. I will never reread any of these. And I'm currently reading the one after Ratner Star, Players, and it's actually closer to his more modern style. I feel like he wrote Ratner Star and was like, okay, I've exhausted this style of writing. Let's go somewhere else.
He tired himself out.
He tired himself out with himself and was like, you know what?
Having read it, how could you not? I had figured that you had calculated your extra credit score.
No. I was like, and I said my bullshit score because I was like, oh, the last time we spoke, it was in the 70s, and there's no way it can go up. And so I was going to give you this oh, it's 106.7, and you're like, mine was whatever. I'm not that far behind you. I'm like, yeah, my score is not that high. In fact, actually, you're higher than me, which is weird.
I'm happy that it's over. And I do think I've kind of figured out the gimmick with Ratner Star. I do think I have a theory as to why it's impenetrable.
Okay, I'm interested to hear what your theory is.
Do you want me now, or do you?
No. Let's get there.
Okay.
Let's get there. We'll get there at some point in this review. We'll probably at either length or satisfaction.
Length, I gave him a 6, but I'll cover that.
Okay.
I'll cover that when we get there.
Okay. All right. So, of course, let's do introductions. Pros, where we review books. We condemn the ones we hate, and we give decent scores to the ones we got through.
Yeah, that's saying it.
I'm JD Clark, and this is EK Lloyd-Williams. Today we are reviewing Ratner Star by Don Delillo. We will get back to indie books, we promise. This has been on the back burner since, when did we give up on it? June?
Fuck, I don't know. I think it was sometime at the beginning of this year.
Maybe it was more like March.
I think it was closer to the beginning of this year. This book is far too exhausting. Like, it takes a year to read.
Yeah, I even would take it to read on walks, and my walk lasts about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I would maybe get 20 minutes into my walk and be like, I'm done. I just want to enjoy the walk. I don't want the walk to.
Yeah. No, usually when we're reviewing a book, I will read it in the evenings when I come home. And I didn't want to read this when I came home. I've been dealing with a bunch of shit at work all day. I don't want to have to deal with this.
And by no means is that a reflection on it's poorly written.
No, it's very well written.
It's very well written. It's just, and here's another thing is okay, I suggested we read this, but I had never read it. As to where I've read Underworld and Gravity's Rainbow, and will say I will reread those. Those are at least enjoyable. This, not really so much, even though when it comes to satisfaction, you'll be surprised by the score I give it.
Probably not.
But we will get there. But first, let us talk about the plot. The passing plot that only gets picked up every, couple hundred pages and then devolves into other shit? Here's the thing. You're gonna, with every Delillo that we possibly read for the channel, I'm going to tell you right now, Delillo's not a plot man. He does not.
I think that is very much obvious now. It's not about the plot. But
not about the plot.
It didn't seem like the plot was there just to facilitate,
get you started, and then kind of because it's in the back of your mind, because it's in the very beginning. What's the significance of the code, of the signal? And so he'll every so often he'll bring it back to the forefront and be like, oh hey, remember the code? Yeah, we're gonna talk about that for maybe 12 pages, and then we're gonna go away for another couple hundred.
I think you mean 12 sentences. Once it goes away, if it comes back, you get maybe 12 sentences. It might even just be 12 words. And then we're doing something else, like crawling around in bat poop, or taking pills that no one can swallow, we're still,
or
oh god,
Gurk.
Oh god.
With his, I need to expose myself to children, but only the nipple.
Because it's not technically a crime. That's
how you know
that guy had daydreams about pedophilia. Because if you're hanging yourself up on a technicality, it's not technically a crime because it's not technically a sex organ. That guy has eaten some babies in a basement, and you know it.
Probably why he speaks so fast in that. What he talks in super speech or whatever it was called. He speaks so fast that only.
Because I'm so smart.
I'm so smart that I speak so fast. And it makes you sound like a
retard.
Yeah. So anyway, what did you give the plot?
I gave it an 8 because it did what it was supposed to do, which was facilitate this exploration of crazy.
Okay, yeah, I gave it an 8 too.
Okay.
Because and there's the thing, like as I said, with Delillo, the plot isn't important.
No.
In fact,
No.
The plot is sometimes paper thin. But if it facilitates and keeps you, if it sparks your interest and it keeps you wanting to read, hoping that they do something with it, it does its job. But the plot is not the point of the novel. The point of this novel was essentially it's a satire on academia.
I think it's very obvious that the plot, like, he literally just needed the plot to facilitate the characters, because there's no reason for them to have gone into any caves.
No.
At all.
No.
There's no reason, but that
and
was
I feel like the bat guano thing was essentially him like hitting you over the head with him, like, these people are going batshit crazy because they're literally dealing with batshit.
Oh Lord.
But
it was, yeah, no, as far as plots go, it's unremarkable.
Yeah.
The focus was the characters.
But yeah, the focus for sure was the characters. I have a gripe with with the characters. Although it's not one of my quotes, but I did mark it down as one of two. I want to say it's two or three little summations of the novel itself.
Okay.
But we'll get there when it gets to quotability. But yeah, no. But yeah, the plot did its job, so I gave it an 8. The only thing that would have made it a 9 or 10 would be if there was a little more focus on the plot and not just the little mere glances we get with it. But again, the plot is not the point of reading a Delillo.
No.
Characters, how did you feel about them?
I gave them a 10.
Okay. I mean, I can see where you would give them a 10. I can see it. But I gave it a lower score. I gave it a 7.
You gave them a 7? I did.
They're all enjoyable.
No, they're not all enjoyable, but they are all very fully developed. I don't think Gerb was enjoyable, and I don't think that Kramer, whoever was the guy who reminded me of
the
Mohole.
one that I compared, Mohole,
asshole, whatever his name is. That guy.
The guy who I compared to Jeff Goldblum, who's the one who he was a man of science, but then he went to live with the Aborigines.
Yeah, that guy.
The reason he gets Jeff Goldblum is because there's a sentence in his dialogue where he goes, "Yes, yes," like, and I just hear, "Yes," like I just hear, "Yes, yeah," like I just hear that when I read it. Okay, I won't say they're enjoyable. They're entertaining.
They're very entertaining, and they're very fully developed.
Yeah, they're fully developed, and no character felt flat necessarily.
No.
The reason I give it a 7 is there were so many characters that you're introduced in the first section.
Yeah.
That never come back up.
No.
And it was like, I didn't really need them. Like,
you did, though.
You did, but you don't. Like that's
You're
where
and
that's where length and satisfaction will come into play a little later, as well. But for instance, I can't remember her name, but she's the one with the infantile sexuality. I would have liked to have dealt with her just like one more time, but she never came back up. Just to insult Bill or Billy. I would have just wanted her to insult him. Because he needed to be taken down a peg near the end.
A few.
Well, okay, I'm being generous by saying one, but he needed to be taken down quite a bit especially in the second part.
Well,
So
two, it's almost like he just disappears into the background. Like, you don't really get a whole lot of Billy.
no,
Like, you're following Billy throughout the book, but it's almost like he doesn't really matter.
no. And it's even brought up by Softly, or no, it's not Softly. Lester? I don't want to say his name was Lester.
It's brought up by a few different people that there's no reason
No,
for him to be there.
Yeah, it's Softly that always says that he needs to be there, and everyone else is like he really doesn't, so it's. I'm sorry, Softly. I'm going to agree with everyone else. Billy's not really needed, even when the code is broken, or whatever. It's like that doesn't matter. What really matters is that we can communicate to the aliens with Logicon. Like the code was not really important. It's just that it's okay, now that we've got the code, let's figure out a way to communicate with them, even though the aliens are us from the past. Spoilers.
That's fine. This is probably one of the only times that people are gonna want spoilers. Because if anybody tries to crack this book, like, this is not a lightweight.
No.
This is like, you are gonna be working your ass off to read this. Like, if we hadn't been doing a video for it, I probably would not have finished it. Not gonna lie.
I will say the 3 books previous to this does help quite a bit in.
That's it.
They help because this is not any other Delillo. I would have said okay. Actually, no. First 4, including this one, I would have said don't start with those. I would say any other author, I'd say start with their first novel and then work forward. Delillo, no, save his earlier works for last, because at least with his mid-career to later works, he's found his footing. He knows what he's writing about, and he's taking himself a little more seriously while still not being completely 100% serious. This, especially this one, I felt like was a parody on Pynchon's style, because Pynchon is a very zany writer, but Pynchon does zany 100 times better. Like, this is still enjoyable, but I won't be reading this again. I will read anything by Pynchon more than once. This is just no.
Yeah, if you're gonna read Delillo, definitely don't start with this.
No, this is like this is like picking a big black cock up your asshole without lube.
This is like, oh boy, oh boy. That's what this is. That's okay. Oh God. And part of that is down to his characters, but they were all well developed enough. I think the thing that makes it such a task is his style in this one.
And I'm gonna presume that you give his style a lower score.
I give it a 9.
Okay. You since we both know each other's scores, okay, it makes sense now that you're saying that. But I would have assumed a lot lower.
No, prolix.
I would have at least assumed a 7 or 6.
But as often as not, profoundly unnecessary. Like, a lot of it was really unnecessary, but it wasn't. It's just he just goes on. But I think this will tie into my theory later. But I think there's a reason it works, and I think there was it feels like he was deliberately putting as many words onto the page as possible, and not because he was getting paid by word count.
No. He even brings it up later in the book when he's talking from Jean's perspective, and
yes,
I've got all these blank pages and all the words that are going to go on it, and even talks about in terms of what they're going to write. I'm like, I felt like that was just Delillo like filling the blank page
I did too.
himself. Like
I did too. I felt
like
there were a
even
few
when he brings up, it's like I'm like the pages are blank, but they're numbered. So even though that they're not written, they all have a distinct identity, and I know what words are going to go on what. It's like you're just filling time, Delillo. Come on, just get to it. Just get back to the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny reading that. I did laugh.
Yeah.
That's really funny because it's true in a way.
Even in another part that I'll bring up in quotability, as I'm reading it, I'm like, I know what you're doing. I'm surprised you're doing it though. But I also know, because it's working on several levels, he's exposing himself, but while also poking fun at the postmodernists of the 60s and 70s.
Oh, yes. Oh,
so,
yes.
So in a sense, Delillo is kind of a postmodernist because he's making fun of the own movement in which he's writing in terms of the style. Like he's exposing himself, like saying like, fuck these guys. Like essentially. Like this is their shtick. And I'll get into it more in depth when we get there. But
I feel like it reads like the kind of parody that you would write after you've been to college, but you haven't developed a sense of self-aggrandizing sort of arrogance.
Yeah.
And I did make a note about that we can get into later. There was a reason I gave him a lot of extra credit.
Okay. So you said style you gave 9?
I gave it 9.
Okay, I gave him a 10, but again, that you can just attribute that to the hard on that I have for good old Don.
I do.
His other works before this, in terms of style, I wouldn't give it a 10, but this got a 10 because about somewhere in the middle of the book, I realized what he was doing, and it just kind of added a level of appreciation for it.
Uh-huh.
As opposed to Americana, In Zone, and Great Jones Street, I wanted to put those down, but I'm on a completionist streak, so it was like, no, I have to keep going. And especially if we're going to get to this for a review, I can't skip a book. Sorry, Craig. In Zone sucks. It is not that good of a book. It's not. It's not poorly written by any stretch, but it's boring. It's boring. Especially when they're doing the entire, because it's split into I think 3 parts. Part 2 is just and it's like it's probably 50 to 60 some odd pages of a football game. I don't care. I don't care about it. Just get to the point of what you're exploring. I don't care about the football game.
He did a lot of that. He did a lot of that in Ratner's Star. He did a lot of that in Ratner's Star.
I would say that this is probably, in terms of his dialogue, it's his most long-winded.
Oh, God.
Because there were a lot of stretches of dialogue where I was just thinking to myself, I know they're fictional characters and not real, but I was thinking to myself, oh my God, shut up. Just shut up. Like at the first part of your dialogue, okay, I'll go with it. But at this point, you're just talking to hear yourself talk. Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But style gets a 10 for me. It's not my favorite version of his writing style, but it's up there.
It's long-winded. Concept and execution. What'd you give concept and what'd you give execution?
Concept, I gave him a 4, and with execution, I gave him a 3.
I kind of went the other direction on execution.
Okay.
Concept, I gave him a 4.5. Execution, I gave him a 5.
Okay. That's right. You docked him. Oh, that's right.
I docked him half a point on concept. But it was kind of a tricky thing because it's rather the concept he's trying to explore is rather more hidden.
Yeah.
Than it would be for pretty much any other novel. You know. So at face value, what did I say here? At face value, the concept is boy genius brought to work in a semi-secret project. And that's just on the face of it, which is a really weak concept.
Yeah.
In actuality, the concept seems to be the methodical self-destruction of the mind, with the owner of the mind being completely unaware of his own self-destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, it merits full points on execution, though maybe less half a point on concept, as you just drive yourself crazy doing that.
Yeah.
But the reason it would merit full points on execution is because you followed along the entire way.
Yeah, okay.
Like you did. You followed, like you were going along trying to find the purpose. You were trying to find the fucking point. And you're just driving yourself insane.
To the point where maybe at the end of it, you want to go out into your front yard and dig a hole.
And climb inside.
Dig a hole within that hole.
But see, like, if that was his objective, like, if that was what he was trying to do, then he did it really well. So, I mean, it necessitates, it necessitates a full score because he did what he was trying to do. I docked half a point on the concept because that's a really rough game to play with yourself as an author. Like, forget being the reader, doing it as an author.
In recent interviews, actually, he has gone to say that this is his favorite novel of his. And I think it's because what you just said, and the fact that he probably had a lot of fun writing it.
I'm sure it's a lot of fun to go crazy in a lot of ways.
Although I do believe that that's why there's such a stylistic shift within a year of him publishing this and publishing not the players, just players, because I feel like he did exhaust himself.
Yeah.
And to a lesser degree, I can kind of relate. But
well, the concept could also be, just a simple parody of academia.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, it would still merit full points because that's how they are.
Yeah.
Sorry, Craig. It's nothing personal. Just, academics tend to they run away with themselves.
Yeah.
They do.
So why it gets a 3 in terms of execution is it's kind of hard to put into words.
Can you put it into a clock?
I couldn't get that to stay on the wall. Otherwise it would have been here. I will agree with you. It does what it's probably, if that was his intention, was to make us lose our minds by continuing to read it to the end, looking for the point, trying to crack the code, so to speak. It would get a perfect score of execution, but I feel like, and even though I give length a decent score, the execution, it could have been slimmed down just a touch. That's where, like,
yes,
like while we enjoyed the pages of him talking about pages,
don't
unenjoyed,
use the word
we're entertained. We were entertained. We were able to chuckle while we were reading it.
You keep positive words to describe this reading experience, and it makes me think you didn't actually read it.
I did read it.
You enjoyed. There were moments when I laughed. Yes.
That's a sense of enjoyment.
There were
or maybe it's laughter
many of them. And
there could be a tortured laugh in there somewhere.
I think maybe some aspects of this novel are a little easier to read if you are super, super, super into the kind of stuff we're working on. But like there were parts when I could feel my eyes glassing over. Like, what?
But yeah, no, I feel like he could have achieved the same results if this book were just a little bit shorter.
Probably.
I mean, you wouldn't have lost your mind as much reading this.
But I put that down. I put that down under length. I wasn't gonna. As far as his concept and his execution, I mean, if the idea is what I think it was, then he executed it very well. I think.
So let's go to structure.
Yes, let's.
I gave structure an 8.
I did give it a 10.
Okay. The reason it goes down for me is there were parts, especially in the second half, we did discuss this, where he does a lot more head hopping within the span of a paragraph, and there's no break.
No.
It's just the next paragraph is this new person. And
sometimes it's in the same sentence.
Yeah, or it's like within like a sentence. It's like you're traveling through Gene's perspective. Then it goes to, I want to say his name was Lester, but I can't remember.
There was a Lester Bolin.
Bolin, okay. So Lester, it would go from her to him to softly, like within the span of like a sentence, like 3 different people, and it's like.
And then you go right back to Gene.
And then you go right back to Gene, and then like within like the next whatever, like a number of sentences, you'd go to Billy, and it's like.
It feels like you're being fucked about as much as Gene herself.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so we made it through that paragraph, and I have no idea what the fuck is going on. Let's try the next paragraph.
And there's one section that it was when Softly went to visit. Oh God, what was his name? He's the dude in the submarine.
Truxell.
Truxell. And I'm like, when did we get here? Like I couldn't. Like I was like.
Like they talked. Okay, the bit about acronym was really funny.
And I love the fact that you never know what acronym stands for.
No, it's a series of letters to make up a word.
Yeah.
That is really funny, but it's also really aggravating.
Yeah. But yeah, no, structure, I docked it just, again, if maybe retroactively I'll up the score, but I'm not going to change it now. It's going to stay at an 8. But like if the structure was to, if the point of the structure was to make you lose your mind as well through the reading, then bravo. But I just didn't like it. So it's more of just preference at this point. So it's kind of a subjective grade on that part, in my perspective, instead of an objective one.
I think, okay, so the reason I gave it a 10 is because I think it plays into the greater overall scope of the story. Mm-hmm. Where, like, everybody starts out, they all have their little idiosyncrasies and their neuroses and their things that they have to do, right? But when they start out, it is a kind of, they are methodically approaching this problem that they're trying to solve. And as the story goes on, everybody just becomes less and less coherent and less useful, especially once we get down into the caves. And I think the structure was meant to kind of mirror that. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's all of these people who are basically devoting themselves to something fucking useless. That,
like Zorgs.
That they do, and it goes back to that self-destructive kind of. What am I trying to say? This is a bad weekend to do this. I am on my period, and you have COVID. And neither one of us is thinking very well.
Nope, hold on. It wasn't Troxel. It was Dent.
Dent?
It was Dent.
I thought you said it was Troxel.
No. Hold on. It was Dent. Old man. It was the old man Dent.
No, you're right. You are right.
Troxel.
But later on, he did say it was Troxel. Because what's his face? Well, oh God, Man-wearing.
Yeah, Man-wearing, or yeah, Main-wearing.
Man-wearing brought it up later, and he asked softly about it. The guy you went to go see when he was resigning.
But like, I don't remember what page it was. I should have marked it down, but it wasn't anything quotable, so I didn't. But there was that part where, and it's where you mentioned like people are making less and less sense. Where like a guy describes a knife. I want to say it was a knife. But he doesn't call it a knife. He just describes a knife, and then Billy goes, "So a knife? Like, why didn't you just say knife? Like, why is he going into this like long, laborious?"
Because that's what people who think they're clever do.
No, I got why, but like, Billy was even sort of like, "So a knife?" Like, even he was like, "Why are you talking this way?"
I swear there was a time, or there was a moment, like it was near the end. There you go. Yeah, it was when Walter gave his resignation statement, and he told softly that the project had been acquired by Acronym. Softly says, "Is that it?" He says, "End of statement. Acquired by Acronym. Elux Troxel." None other, or whatever his name is. So it was Dent, but he says, unless he's kind of depending on you not to remember who he went to see, which that does seem like a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm too tired to try to figure it out. I don't care.
Okay, so we'll just move on right on to diction then. Diction, I gave him a 10.
I gave him a 10. Really quite splendid, in many ways entirely wasted. And wasteful.
Yeah.
But quite varied.
Varied, and I feel like earlier Delillo more so than later Delillo, I feel like he was trying to just show off his vocabulary, because in the 4 books I've read so far, he has a very varied vocabulary. Not so much in what I'm reading right now. He kind of pared it down a bit. Yeah,
it is. He does go on at great length. Like, he cracked a dictionary and learned a new word, and he's trying to find all the very different ways he can use it, and many of them aren't necessary.
Yeah.
But he used them well.
Used them well. He may be a bit masturbatory, but
I think more than a bit. I would say part 2 was devoted quite heavily to being.
I honestly feel
masturbatory.
Part 1 was to, even though part 1 is the longer the longer part section. I feel like part 1 was just to, like, if I can get you to the end of this section, I can do whatever the fuck I want in part 2, and you'll keep reading.
Yeah, that's probably how he felt by the time he was done. Like, if you read this, you're a sap.
Yeah. Like, I've got you by the short hair, and I'm just going to lead you wherever.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Formatting. What'd you give him on formatting?
9.7.
Okay.
That's where I docked him 3 points.
Why did you dock him 0.3 of a point?
Okay, I don't know if it's like this in your version, but every chapter, or in part 2, every beginning of a new section, the indentation is this giant tab.
Okay, see, mine looks like this.
It's the same. It's the same.
No, but it's on the same page, so it's not like. What chapter is that, or what?
Well, what page is that on? Because ours, I think, are at the same page number.
332.
332. Starts with Rob Toxin quotes.
Uh-huh. See, I don't mind that so much. Because it fits with everything else that's going on.
It may fit, but...
No, it's ugly, but it fits.
It's
the whole
ugly.
thing's fucking
so
ugly.
0.3. That's why I only docked it 0.3.
No, I understand.
Is like, as someone who formats novels, I would never do that, even if it fit within... Yeah, it's like that with Chapter 7 as well. I'm sorry. It may work with infuriating your reader, but as a formatter, I'm going to dock you. Yep.
He does it in all of those chapters, or it's not
all
his fault. It's
the sections.
It's the formatter's fault, but it's every chapter, every section.
Every chapter, yeah. I didn't care for it, but it wasn't enough to dock it a full point, just the 0.3. Other than that, beautifully formatted. Even like the parts where like there's that in the second half, where it's the handwritten formula of like division, where he gets where the code is essentially correct.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay. That's beautiful. The where all of the equations are brought in. That's great. Yeah, that I those are all beautifully done. Even the little like fill in the blank sections where like you could have participated with the book a bit.
I was not gonna do that.
I wanted to, but it was on my walk when I read it, and I didn't have a pencil, and I was like, eh.
I thought about it, but then I was like, no, we're not doing that. No. Already half crazy. We're not doing any more to make it worse.
So that I enjoyed. The fact that it kind of it.
This bit.
Oh, the Logicon.
Yeah.
But yeah. Other than that, it was perfect formatting, and just those indentations on the first paragraph of new chapters or new sections. I felt like I was reading a Chad Ryan for those first paragraphs of whatever. The title page doesn't go after the first chapter. Sorry. It's not a movie. We're not watching a movie with a cold open. It's a book. Put the title page where it goes. Anyway. Length.
Awfully long for 438 pages. Ladies is double that length, maybe triple, and still is half the trial. So I gave it a 6.
I gave length an 8. Because it, in terms of exhausting you, by the time you were done, you were like, oh my god, thank you. If it were any shorter, it would have actually gone down a bit in score. If it were any longer, it would have gone down in score. It was like,
thank God.
But it could have been a little shorter, but if it had been too short, it would have been like, I didn't quite lose my mind. Like where I want to say when it comes to length and satisfaction, I gave back the points that I docked on execution. Because if I docked maybe a point from each one, from length and satisfaction, then execution would have been a 5. But I think
of structure, diction, and formatting, I think because I had to give all of those a 10, I had to dock some serious points from length, and so I was like 6. I almost gave it a 5.
You gave him a 6 more out of rubric spite. It's like, I've given you these good bullet points. I've given you 10s here, 10s here, 10s here. God damn it, Don, you're getting a fucking 6. Is that what you were doing?
No, genuinely, for length, I was like, I've been waiting to get to the end of this book for 2 months now. It took 2 months to read this fucking book. I'm not shitting you. When I say Les Mis is an easier read, that's true. Fucking Game of Thrones didn't take this long. I got through Game of Thrones in 3 days, and it's double this. This is 438 pages, and it took me 2 months. We started back in October. We're halfway through fucking December. No, he earned the 6. Okay.
Quotability.
I found some in part 1, but I don't remember where they were.
That's why you mark them down as soon as you read them.
I did write them down. I made stuff.
And since I have 2 copies, I was able to mark this with pencil.
I put these, and I don't remember which one the quotes were.
You didn't use a different color?
I did use a different color. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's, oh God. Like, I even put it down. I even have them, like, on passages that I know I thought were interesting, but at the time I definitely thought they were interesting, but now I don't know why.
At least I remember why.
I don't remember why.
Okay, so what did you at least give it?
I gave it 6.
Okay, so you at least found 3.
I at least found 3.
So you gave him a 6. I gave him a 10.
You gave, well, I would have given him a 10, but I couldn't remember where any of the other quotes were that I liked.
And this is why you mark them down in your notebook while you're grading.
No.
While you're reading, actually, not while you're grading. While you're reading.
I marked them down while I'm reading. I just never... Okay, so Movies for the Dreams I Never Had. That one by Faye. Go on. Share yours.
Are you gonna... So, okay.
What?
Okay, so the first one I found was on page 10. And it was amazing how often kind-looking people turned out to be crazy. He wondered gravely whether things had reached such a bad state that only crazy people attempted commonplace acts of kindness, that the crazy and the kind were one and the same.
Talking about the lady and the screaming lady.
Yeah. Then it was a while before I found another one. It was 136 to 137, and I want to say that's the part where it's a really long piece. It's a really long piece of dialogue. I won't read it, but it's when Faye is talking about movies are dreams I never had.
I had that one marked too.
Yeah, because it's relatable. Like, it's a little long-winded.
Movies are dreams I wish I had.
So that was another one, and then 140, but before that one, there was one on 64, which I said is not a quote, but it's one of the few funny little summations of the novel. And it's possible this whole thing might be a waste of time, is what you're saying. It's like page 64 and you're already warning me, Don. Like, thank you.
I feel like I meant to check that one. Like, I had some tabs in here to mark foreshadowing, and I think I meant to mark that one, but yeah, that seems awfully funny to say it that early, that it seems like the whole thing might be a waste of time. I would have usually waited until near the end.
Yeah, but it's great that it's actually near the beginning, because you're gonna forget about it if you didn't mark it. But
no, I didn't forget about it. I just couldn't find it again, and I didn't want to have to go back.
And then on page 141, the final sentence of that really thick paragraph: things that should be simple are always hard, but hard things are never easy. And then page 144.
Well, that's more foreshadowing, but okay.
Yeah, well, I like it.
No, it works. It's good. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying.
And then there's one on 144, and then one that I would say is not a quote, but it's another summation of the book. 141, the best place to begin a story is as close to the end as possible. And then 140. Then 145, this is one of the other summations. Few people here had any link to speak of with others in the structure. An occasional name was mentioned, a hint dropped, and that was the extent of it. A set of rapid sequential jumps, no suggestion that something continuous was taking place. So that was like another again, it's near the beginning of the book, almost halfway, but not quite. And then the next quote that I had was 222. And it's at the bottom of the page. Don't look down your nose at esoterica, Ratner said. If you know the right combination of letters, you can make anything. This is the secret power of the alphabet. Meaningless sounds, abstract symbols, they have the power of creation. And then page 311 is the final quote that I have, but it's not the final thing that I marked. 311 is defenseless love is suicide. Under that open sky, nothing falling survives the rigors of identification. Where once men and women sought communion in sexual love, innocent of the need of pragmatic valuation, they now deploy themselves across a level of existence composed of silences and daunted withdrawals. The theme of modern love is isolation. And then the final thing that I marked, which is the part where Delillo exposes himself, which sounds weird out of context, and especially with Gerp in the back of my mind. I'm just going to read it because it's 411 or 410. There's a whole class of writers who don't want their books to be read. This to some extent explains their crazed prose. To express what is expressible isn't why you write if you're in this class of writers. To be understood is faintly embarrassing. What you want to express is the violence of your desire not to be read. The friction of an audience is what drives writers crazy. These people are going to read what you write. The more they understand, the crazier you get. You can't let them know what you're writing about. Once they know, you're finished. If you're in this class, what you have to do is either not publish or make absolutely sure your work leaves readers strewn along the margins.
That was also a piece that played into my theory about why this is considered so impenetrable.
So let's get into that. So, since that was brought up, let's go into your theory as to why this is impenetrable.
Because it's not.
It's really not.
It's quite simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely simple.
It's a taxing read, for sure. But it's not impenetrable. Like, this is not an unreadable text. Like, you can get through it.
The excess of jumbled somethings is meant to conceal the fact that there is, in reality, almost nothing.
Correct.
Like, the entire thing can be boiled down to an advanced civilization, an ancient advanced civilization that killed itself out, sent a radio frequency meant to announce an event which might otherwise have gone unnoticed or have been a total surprise, which was the eclipse at the end.
Correct.
And there was nothing extraordinary about the eclipse except that no one knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Like, if you read through all the parts of the eclipse, if you read through, like, he tells you what happens during the eclipse. Fucking nothing. Except what happens during every solar eclipse.
Here's the thing, like, he even kind of hints at you, like drops little breadcrumbs throughout the book to even let you in on where the signal came from. because he always, even in the beginning of the book, he brings this image of a boomerang. So the message, because like, you know, in the very beginning they think like, oh, the message came from a planet that is orbiting around Ratner's star, da 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 da. But then it turns out that like the message is from Earth, got caught in a mohole, which then they start to think that maybe Earth exists within a mohole itself.
Mm-hmm.
So like Delillo's, I won't say he's holding your hand, but he's leading you.
He's not. He is leading you, but he's definitely not holding your hand, because
No,
the point of everything else, like again, it's to cover up all of the crazy is to cover up the fact that there's nothing actually going on, and
right.
The reason it's not even really meant to cover it up, because he does, like you said, he does tell you. He tells you that it's too hot. Like they figure out that it's too hot for any being to live there.
Yeah.
The star. There's no possible way. And there are aliens occupying this as a habitat because it's just too damn hot. Nothing can survive. Okay. Then he comes back, like you said, with the image of the boomerang. And then, like, he does keep telling you along the way. So, but the thing that gets everybody hung up, both in the book and trying to read it, is that they're trying to read complexity into something that is not complex.
Correct.
And that's where you get this self-destructive sense of insanity, where you have all these people who desperately want to be very, very special. Like, I cracked the code, he did from the moleholes, and he did the Zorgs, and he did the thing up my ass, like, but it's not really important because none of that's real.
And I do believe that's why in the book, Softly ends up where Endor ended up. Mm-hmm. Because Endor, it's not that Endor couldn't crack the code. He cracked it. He's the one who figured it out. But he realized how pointless it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why Softly ends up in the hole, within the hole, is he too realizes just how pointless this has all been.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we get the final image of just Billy.
Well, Billy's going to the hole, too.
Yeah, he's going to the hole, too, because he's realized how pointless it is, but he's on a white tricycle.
Right. Yeah.
Which is another imagery, it's another bit of imagery that pops up in other Delillo novels, this tricycle. Which I don't know if it's like a little subtle callback.
Maybe it meant something very special to him. I'm really glad the sun finally came out.
But yeah, this book is by no means impenetrable.
It's very...
Which is actually kind of why I wanted to read it, and it was kind of let down a bit by the fact that it wasn't impenetrable. Like I
was very happy to finally figure it out, because, like, again, you have to go through. But by the time you get to Endor's room and you see the clock, and by the time you get to by the time you actually get to the end, there is a lot to sit, because he doesn't make it easy. He is throwing stuff at you constantly. Ratner, or not Ratner, Delillo.
Yeah, no, like while Delillo is, and another bit of imagery in this book where it's that like maze room that you kind of have to walk through to get to like other compartments. That I kind of feel like it was sort of like a representation of how you are as a reader. It's like you know where you're going in a sense, but
you have no idea how you're getting.
Always throw you off to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna say that that's kind of how Delillo was with this book. Like I said, he's not holding your hand, but he's leaving you these breadcrumbs. But you have to get through this maze room first, and you don't always know where you need to turn. But he's sort of dictating from like an intercom, like, go here, this is where I need you to go, this is where we're going into this hole now. We're going to be dealing with that shit. Say goodbye to the sun.
I give it a 10 on satisfaction.
I give it a 9.
Because like, it's not... like it did feel like a puzzle that I had worked out. And that was ultimately very satisfying.
The only reason it goes down is because it was a very satisfying read, but as soon as I finished that last sentence, I just dropped the book and was like, okay, let me just rest now. Like,
as soon as I got to that last sentence, I went back and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna double check that this solar eclipse was like every other fucking solar eclipse in the world. My theory has been proven correct. The only thing that sets this one apart is that nobody knew.
It wasn't planned. It wasn't like no one had predicted that it was going to happen. It was one of those eclipses that was missed. That's it.
I know, baby. I know.
Extra credit. Now that we're extra credit, gave 10.
Extra credit, I gave a 10. Why?
Why? One. It again. You'll probably be like, well, why didn't execution get the perfect score then? It gets it here. It gets its points here, where at the end of it, one, you were exhausted. Two, but you did feel like you had accomplished something in figuring it out. It was, and I'm going to say the word again, enjoyable.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like, okay, as to where you finished it this morning, I've had at least 2 weeks to sit on it, which is why I think I can use that word, because the further away you get from it, it's like, yeah, it was exhausting while you were reading it. But you can kind of wear that badge of honor and be like, I got through it. It was enjoyable.
It does feel like a badge of honor, honestly. Just wait.
So without the extra credit, this book would have gotten 86.7, but with the extra credit, it gets a 96.7 Zorgasms out of 100.
See, we were not that far off. I was only 2 points ahead of you in both cases. I gave it, without extra credit, I gave it 88.5, and with extra credit, it's a 98.5. Which is really high praise for a book that I will never, ever, willingly
we'll never read again. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend.
No, I would not recommend, especially as your first Delillo.
Maybe as a last. Maybe as a last.
It could be my last. Like, it's kind of, it's
You're reading White Noise.
Come on. It is rough to get through. If you can get through it, and if you can see what he's doing and how he's setting it up, and maybe, it'll just so happen that this video is what's going to help somebody not blow their brains out trying. If you can see what he's doing, and if you can, like, sift through all the shit to get to where you're trying to go, you feel really proud of yourself for getting through it, for getting to the end. You finished Ratner's novel, and it was not impenetrable. You understand.
You finished Ratner's novel?
Is that sexually suggestive in some way that I don't understand?
No, Ratner's novel?
Ratner's star.
There you
go. What did I say?
You said Ratner's novel.
My brain is fried. I'm so tired. Look at me. Do I look like someone who has read Ratner's Star? This is the look of someone who has just finished.
I said, I looked like that 2 weeks ago.
You just come out, I look like I came out of a hole within a hole.
Yeah.
But I did it! I cracked the code!
14, 28, 57.
And it meant nothing. It meant fucking nothing. What are we reading next? White Noise? God, no.
No, I'm gonna give you a Delillo break.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna give you, just like I gave you an Ellis break, I'm gonna give you a Delillo break. I unfortunately don't get to get a Delillo break. I'm reading Delillo all the way through.
What? Oh, God.
I did it with Ellis. I did it with Pynchon. I like to, although Pynchon, I was actually told, don't read him in chronological order in terms of publication. Read him in chronological order in terms of when the novels take place.
Okay.
So I might have to read him over again just to see, like, because all the novels sort of, except for Gravity's Rainbow takes place in Europe, but World War II is kind of canonized in American history. So, like, if you read the books in chronological order in terms of when they happen, you get the history of America. So, like, Mason and Dixon is like the beginnings of America. Against the Day is 1893 to World War I, and then you have Gravity's Rainbow, then you have V, which takes place in the 1950s, and then you have The Crying of Lot 49, which is the 60s, Inherent Vice is the 70s, Vineland is the 80s, and then Bleeding Edge is the 90s and 2000s.
So who are we reading next?
Well, I guess with every video that we've done so far, we don't have anyone, but we'll let you know if we know. By then, when this video is uploaded, you'll know what we're reading at the end. We just don't know what we're doing. We'd like to read more indie novels. We might do, maybe we'll do a few solo reviews, because like you have a few indies and I have a few indies that we haven't read together. In fact, I don't think you own what I have.
Probably not.
So maybe we'll probably do some solos. You might get a chance to have a video where EK rips me a new one after reading my new novel. She might finally say that I've lost it and I've lost my mojo and I should put down the pen and paper.
I have literally never said that, and sometimes I think you write certain things into your books just to see if I will give you all of the leeway in the world.
We'll see.
The only time I ever lay into you is when you use the wrong word or you spell it the wrong way and refuse to change it. I am looking forward to reading As Ithaca Lay Forgotten. I need a break. I finished Ratner Star today and I am done. I'm done. Okay. Yeah, we're okay. So yeah, I guess we're gonna sign off. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs down.
Yes. Thumbs down.
Unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe and delete and report any comments in the comment section. Try to get them deleted.
Yeah, all of them. All of them. And definitely don't leave a comment telling us the name of an indie book that you would like to see reviewed, because that would actually be helpful.
And if you suggest a book of your own, please be selfish and don't mention another author for us to read to spread the word in support of other authors. Don't do that.
Don't do that. You are the only author that matters. You are the most important special princess boy.
We love you.
No. We're not going, no.
I want your babies.
No, we don't. But
EK
you are
wants your
very
babies.
special. You are special. You're so special. You are so special. No one should read any other books except yours. So definitely.
You are a special snowflake. Your snowflake is the snowflake where the Who's live. No other snowflake but you, sweetheart.
Yeah, you are the snowflake in which the Who's live, which
In
explains.
fact,
You have the Grinch.
earlier
That explains why you stink and haven't showered.
In fact, earlier in the video, if it doesn't get cut, that nipple flash was for you, dear viewer. That's for you. It wasn't for EK. It wasn't for, anyone else. It was for you. Hair and all. Hairy nipple. In fact, since you were so good, you sat through this entire review.
Oh, no.